sun,
the moon,
the summer,
the winter,
hot,
cold. Today we're going to be talking about the optimist's perspective on where our market's headed and the pessimist perspective on where our market's going to head. So we're going to get into what the general economy is going to do in 2025. We're going to look at what interest rates in the mortgage industry are where they're going to head. And then we're going to look at housing supply and housing prices. And we're going to give you two different perspectives from a mortgage advisor and from a real estate agent on where the national economy is headed. So stay tuned to the end because there's going to be a lot of great information. We're going to be smoking cigars. Subscribe to stay tuned for more videos like this.
It's the Tim and Rene Real Estate Talk Cigar Show.
Firing up with a sunny disposition on the economy. It's been interesting what we've been able to see after the announcement of our new administration. Stock market has exploded. I mean, we recently heard that Bitcoin reached $100,000. That's pretty impressive, especially with everyone following crypto. You see the markets are reacting with what they believe will happen, and it's been pretty positive.
Yeah.
Next is the federal fund rate. What is the Fed going to do based on what they're hearing and speculating on what the new administration is wanting?
Well, I'm going to start immediately off on the topic of Bitcoin as the pessimist perspective. There's kind of two sides on the Bitcoin debate. You either love it or you hate it. And those people that hate it don't understand it. I'm actually in the camp of I don't like it and I understand it. And this is the pessimist perspective I'm going to give.
You understand it but don't like it. Tell us.
So Bitcoin is obviously a grand sum of all the energy that gets put into it. Just like gold is a grand sum of all the mining power that gets put into the value of gold. And the US dollar is really just the amount of trust or lack thereof put into that commodity. And the dollar is obviously controlled by the feds. There's a bunch of levers and stuff that either cause inflation, deflation, you know, whatever it is. We obviously saw Jay Powell flooding the economy in 2020. I understand why Bitcoin is hot, sexy, and happening right now. And I'm not even mad that Bitcoin has hit 100,000. At this point, I'm not going to debate the price of Bitcoin. Bitcoin could hit $1 million and I wouldn't blink an eye. I don't have a problem with Bitcoin is. My main issue with Bitcoin is that because it's decentralized, if any of you have read Lord of the Flies, you know what happens when you take any form of authority out of a situation. And so we are a guinea pig. I mean, we saw what happened to Portland in 2020 when they inserted a law that had never been tried. Shit went south very quickly. So we are now looking at a decentralized, when Bitcoin pulled back from 100,000, guess what happened to the rest of the economy? It pulled back with it. China is now purchasing large sums of Bitcoin into their treasury.
El Salvador is as well. You got African nations that are using Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. There is conversation on centralizing crypto, and that's where governments are headed. So is it really going to happen? I think people who are investing this amount of money in these cryptos think it's going to happen.
But I mean, what happens when a guy like Elon Musk, love him or hate him, this guy has been known by the SEC to influence stocks, and he's done the same thing with Dogecoin and Bitcoin. You've seen him pump and dump the cryptos. What happens when a large-scale government buys up enough Bitcoin?
It's happening.
It's happening, but what happens when they use that? So instead of sending off a nuke, they just dump a bunch of Bitcoin and, you know, sure, it's going to burn through some of their cash, but it could spur a massive jolt in the economy.
The one commodity that I want to add that's a little factor is that we love the shiny penny, right? Like the peacock that shows its beautiful flowers, the lion that shows off his mane. There's a reason why we are attracted to shiny things, and this is the shiny thing that could create flexibility. Unfortunately, a little bit of anonymity with how we spend our money.
How soon do you think it'll take for a Bitcoin
that's a good question.
to be able to purchase
a house? A while. I mean, it's going to take a while. Right now, from my lens as a mortgage broker, what I'm seeing is banks don't even want to touch it. If they see any type of movement from your bank account into a crypto, vice versa, they say that account is untouchable. They don't even know the money is already liquid in your account. They don't want to touch it. So I think before that happens, it has to be centralized.
That's really good. We're off to a good start.
Yeah.
I think that Bitcoin will be able to be used to purchase one Bitcoin to purchase a house.
Recently, I would say within the last week, there's been a lot of speculation. What's going to happen in El Salvador? You know that Nayib Bukele has invested in Bitcoin every single day. They're investing in Bitcoin, and the country is holding on to so much Bitcoin. One of their financial advisors, who is actually giving Bukele flowers for the decision, who's been against it from the beginning, said, we don't know what it's going to do because it means nothing until it's cashed in. And that's kind of going back to your point.
Yeah.
What does all of this mean? Right now, it's just a theory. It's just something that's in the air. Not until it's cashed in, you actually have cash.
Well, and when you look at Bitcoin, you've also got to consider market capitalization. So right now, Bitcoin has about the 10% of the market capitalization of total value of gold. So if you times Bitcoin by 10 right now, you're hitting 1 million, which is where I see an easy number being reached. So Bitcoin, objectively hitting half the value of gold by 2030, I could see it happening with the amount of trust and energy currently going into it.
Will it be Bitcoin? That's the other question. Because what the governments are going to want is control over the crypto. The theory is what's most important, not the theory, what's the word they call it? The framework, the actual structure of the crypto is what's important in value. The name of it or the brand of it, I think, is irrelevant.
This is the optimist being the pessimist.
Oof.
I mean, there's a little bit of optimist and pessimist in all of us, which is why we're going to be giving you both points throughout this video. Make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this, because we're going to be going over quite a few more topics that I think are going to be noteworthy if you're looking into getting into real estate or really any commodity in 2020. I mean, just looking at the stock market too, we've seen tech stocks just rocket in the last month. I mean, I'm thinking like, and this isn't a suggestion to purchase. I'm not giving you any financial advice. If you make risks on the stock market, do it at your own, with your own budget and with your own plan. Optimist is a stock. Russian AI company that is now based in the Netherlands, has over doubled in value. I was buying that thing at $18 a share and it's reaching 36, but that's just one of the stocks doubled in the last month. I mean, we've seen Tesla take off from Musk being attacked for buying Twitter. We've seen Rocket Lab. We've seen all sorts of stocks that are just completely screaming right now. And on the flip side of things, I'm going to play the pessimist with the general overall economy. The market is screaming on the back end of extremely high inflation. And, I'm going to go beyond Biden and say there were some pretty poor choices happening even before Biden took office and kind of just pumping the economy to no end.
Well, the real question now is going to be, what's the federal fund rate going to be at? Because the Fed has a dual mandate, and you touched on one of them, which is inflation. And if you listen to Chairman Powell, if you're paying attention to this, you're hearing that they believe one of those mandates is taken care of. Inflation's at 2%. That's what they've been wanting to. It's getting closer and closer to their goal of being at 2%, even though it's hovering in the 2s. They're good. The other part of that mandate, the other part of that dual mandate is, what about unemployment? That's the number one thing that they're looking at. And with a jobs report that's showing more jobs, with unemployment going up, that's going to be the determining factor. Are there more jobs? Is that true? Is there going to be a higher risk of unemployment? Is that going to be true? The Fed is kind of thinking, we don't know. And we're going to take on our role to either raise, keep, or lower the federal fund rate. For those of us in mortgages, we know, even though the first position mortgage is not attached to the federal fund rate, indirectly it does affect us.
Yeah.
And so we want to see that federal fund rate get cut, because then that first position mortgage interest rate will also go down.
Well, the feds can't really move the federal fund rate by more than a whole percentage point without jolting the economy. They've got to act very slowly, kind of keep a delicate balance. To me, I'm just seeing such a delicate balance that I wonder if there will be a slip up in the coming years, even next year.
There's never been a soft landing.
There's never been.
They are hoping for a soft landing. I think Chairman Powell sees that they are getting close to a soft landing.
So does the optimist in you see the soft landing happening?
I don't think I want to see a soft landing. I want to see an abrupt jolt. I want to see the federal fund rate go down. I want to see the chairman and the board say, we need to lower it. So that's my hope. Do I see a soft landing? It's been interesting. When you look at the data and when you listen to the Fed speak, they say the economy is better than what they anticipate. When we talk to people, when I talk to local people, they say the opposite. They're losing jobs.
Well,
it's hard to hire. It's hard to get work.
Interest rates are at about 6.75% at the time of making this video on average.
Our conventional rate is around 6.75. Yeah, our FHA rates are around 5.75. We're looking at a big discrepancy between conventional and FHA rates, the highest that I've seen.
And I think the analyst consensus is that by the end of 2025, we should start seeing below 6% in the conventional rate.
Once we do see conventional rates getting under 6, we're going to see a big movement in the real estate market.
Well, so we're already getting into the interest rate topic, which is the second thing we're going to talk about, but I just want to back up and go back to the economy really quickly. But it does tie into the interest rates, that if Trump does, or the Feds really, but last time in 2019, Trump was telling the Feds to drop the rate before we even had COVID. I remember very clearly because I bought a home at the end of 2018, and by 2019, I bought at the top near 5%. By 2019, I was already looking into a refi before COVID even happened. And now it's because Trump really wanted to stimulate the economy by any means necessary. He was looking at growth at all costs. And that's why I say that some of the feverish market that we've seen over the last few years can't just be blamed on Bidenomics. The pessimist side of me here is gonna say that if we do see that jolt like you're hoping for, because I don't truly believe that inflation is completely under control. We've kind of batted it down, but I think inflation could rear its ugly head, and we realize that we're just playing a game of whack-a-mole with inflation. And I mean, honestly, the most pessimistic I can get is that we're gonna see inflation rise to the level of, you know, Germany in the 1920s.
Oh my goodness, don't say that. Cut, rewind, don't listen to Tim Jackson.
Well, what's the optimist?
I wonder about that. I hope that inflation stays where it's at. However, if we're listening to the media, right, we're listening to what Trump's looking to do. One of the first things he says is tariffs. In fact, look it up. In the 80s, I think it was 88, Oprah is interviewing Trump and says, "When are you going to become president, Trump?" And he says something along the lines of, "I don't ever want to become president, but if I do, the first thing I would do is tariff all of our allies." Not our enemies, but our allies. He said this in the 80s.
Tariffs are inflationary in nature, are they not?
In the short term, definitely. So that's the juxtaposition, right? That's the juxtaposition. If this truly happens, if Trump truly starts adding tariffs, then you know he's already meeting with leaders around the world because he's saying this. The purpose is to get those companies to come back to the US, because what Trump wants to see is more jobs, so that the economy will bolster itself because of the jobs that are in the country. The short term would be, yeah, it's going to be inflationary, which is right now why the Fed is even more cautious than what they've been throughout the last 2 years.
So the optimistic view is that rates come down enough that affordability comes back, the average home buyer can start affording the average home, if I'm hearing you, and the economy has you actually said a jolt without any sort of reaction. Before we get into the pessimistic side of where I see interest rates heading, I just want to let you know that this is just one of the first of many videos we're going to be doing together. Right now you might notice that we're in a construction zone where we're actually on ground zero of what is going to be the studio that we're building to make these videos a reality. So Rene and I are pouring time, money, effort, energy into these videos, so definitely subscribe along for the journey. This is going to be a very cool speakeasy film studio. It's really awesome. You're going to see a lot more of the detail work as we get the work underway.
But even cooler than the location are the people. I mean, what a gift to be able to spend time with Tim Jackson, to kind of have this banter, go back and forth, really sharpen ourselves, sharpen our skills, and to do it in front of a camera where we get to smoke a cigar and enjoy the conversation with those of you that are watching. That's the true gift. So you're going to be able to see not just the location change over time as it expands and gets prettier. Us too.
Yeah.
We're going to expand and get prettier.
I'm going to get more wrinkles, but what you are doing also is...
Maybe I'll get the mane.
Your point, Rene, is I like the optimism of me getting prettier. What you are going to see, though, is that right now, like clicking that subscribe button and following along for the journey, I really think is like investing in a stock when it's young. You're going to watch the progress, you're going to grow alongside us, and you're going to be more knowledgeable because you're following us along the way, and you're going to see the dividends and the massive return by staying tuned and staying plugged into what's happening in our national economy. And Rene and I, we are day in, day out. We live, breathe, we sleep real estate, stocks, commodities. We are financial gurus that are here to help. Definitely sign up for the Steal of the Week deal down below. That's going to link you to an amazing property in your area. You're going to fill out all your details, and so that way if you are looking to gear up and make real estate just one of the many buckets that you look into making your financial forecast and really make a true living for yourself. You're not just surviving, you're thriving. Make real estate a part of that journey, and yeah, just sign up for that list because you're going to get a great deal coming your way once a week. So now the pessimistic view of interest rates. rates. And the pessimist in me is based on history. How many people of 100 predicted the 2008 financial crash?
I mean, it's hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight's 2020, but we're always projecting and making these, fluffy things.
Well, let's take a moment right now to just talk about the ego. I think it's something that we all have to be conscientious of. So back then, when this whole crash, it was because mortgage brokers were just handing out money without asking for documents and looking for that ability to repay, which is a big deal now, right? You have to show and demonstrate an ability to repay.
But on the same note, who predicted the COVID crash, that V-shaped recovery? Nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw what I call not just the match on the Tinder, but like the Tinder of lack of supply of housing, and then we came at it with a flamethrower after dousing it with gas. Nobody predicted that, or else everybody would have bought real estate in 2018 or 2019. When people were already saying housing was already completely maxed out, it couldn't go any further. So I say that my pessimist perspective isn't based on, I just want to see the world burn, but it is based off of well, if hindsight's only 2020, then why aren't we looking at all of the different options? Why aren't we contrasting the views and seeing what could happen? Why are we just saying one thing? Look, NAR, and we're going to get into this at the end, but NAR has a fixed price for where they think housing prices are going to go, whereas the first-time home buyer wants to see housing prices crash by 40 or 50. What I mean to say is that when you just put your lenses on and you look at the data, you make the data say what you want it to say.
True.
But you really need to be able to look at all the different options, diversify. That way you can be prepared for whatever market condition comes up.
Diversify outside of the housing market?
I mean, I think you should own real estate. I think you should own stocks. I think you should own, I'm not going to tell you to buy crypto. I don't own a lot of it myself, but hey,
But don't keep all your eggs in one basket is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, buy what you know.
I truly appreciate what the housing market has been able to do for me, and this is outside of the role of a mortgage broker. I feel truly privileged to be in the role. I love advocating for people, especially in this way, so that I can help people get into homes. But before I did this, I was a school principal, so the advocacy piece is important to me. I say this simply to say homeownership provided opportunities that I wasn't even aware that I would need. So even though I do believe you should diversify into as many baskets that make sense for you, especially if you feel comfortable, homeownership should be the starting point for many of that.
Yeah, to get to the pessimistic interest rates, because I agree with you there, but the pessimism on interest rates is that I don't think the Feds are going to listen to Trump this time. I think rates are going to continue to have to be up, at least for the mortgage world. We saw what happened when the Feds brought the rates down just this most recent time, where mortgage rates reacted at an inverse of what the Feds were doing. And I think that's mostly because, sure, inflation is kind of under control, but shelter and housing is not. It's kind of been the thing that's kind of starting to drift away from the rest of the pack. So housing is not really under control by inflation, and I could see rates staying up higher in order to keep housing pushed down as much as possible. Now, obviously, the underlying issue is not interest rates, it's supply and demand, which is what we're gonna get into.
What we saw, especially when Tim mentioned, the federal fund rate was cut in September. It was a great opportunity for some to jump in and refinance, and within a week, less than a week, interest rates in that first position mortgage went up. Why is the question? Supply and demand is definitely a part of that. In addition to that is the first position mortgage industry. The banks that are paying attention to this react to headlines. One of the first things that Powell said when that federal fund rate was cut was, we believe inflation is, we're going to be paying attention to the jobs report, more specifically unemployment. And as soon as that federal fund rate was cut, the very next week, there's an unemployment report that is the lowest that it had been in 4 or 5 months. It created a reaction from the banks. If the Fed chairman is saying that we're going to pay attention to jobs more than anything, we better slow down our interest rates.
So what I see from a housing supply standpoint, pessimistic here, and what I see from a housing price point, pessimistic here again, is that the funny thing is that my pessimist take on housing prices is that they're going to continue going out of control. They're going to crash upwards, but I don't think it's a good thing, because affordability and the average home buyer being able to afford the average home is really important to the American dream. It's why the Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae were founded right after World War II, and so that the whole goal was to bring the dream of home ownership to the average buyer. And I just don't see that being a reality in the future of America. I see homeownership being more of a privilege. I see the rich continuing to get richer from a general economic standpoint. And I really see, from a supply standpoint, the lack of building and development continuing to be a major pain point in a lot of America.
Keep hitting on that, Tim. That is the biggest thing right there. That's the driver, supply and demand. How do we create more construction, more homes? Because that's what will most likely stabilize housing prices.
Well, what does the Optimist say?
I completely agree in regards to the value of homes. In 2023, the media was telling the American, don't buy a home. If you buy a home in 2023, you're going to lose money. Home values are going to go down 20%. Do you remember that?
I do.
I heard that in January 2023, February, March. Strategically, what I was doing is working on different loan options for people. And what did I find out in 2024? With the highest interest rates that we've seen since the 90s, that's a big deal. We have to talk about that. So in that regards, I understand what you're saying, Tim. I don't know if housing values will go down. They seem to be going up, and the interest rates aren't really doing anything to stop that. It is the supply and demand issue. However, what I do believe will happen is the economy, the wages that people are making are going to go up. That balance is going to be crucial in order to allow that first-time home buyer to get into that house.
I mean, the pessimist in me, funny enough, I mean, a lot of people always point at the real estate industry and point the finger and say, this is why the housing market is the way it is because you guys keep saying that the prices are going to go up. I'll be the first to say that I would love prices to come down. I've got 9 out of 10 of my buyers are waiting at the doorstep to get into a home. I would make more money if housing prices drop. That's the reality.
Yep.
I mean, we both would.
More people would definitely get in. Then the other side of that coin is, what about those of us that have homes? We don't want to see the housing values go down.
Right. But I mean, rates dropping and prices coming down to a reasonable level would be something that really spurred the real estate sector.
Do you see housing values going down in 2025?
Not at all. And I do need to be careful about just spurring on the real estate just to say it. I mean, obviously I've got a dog in the fight. I do own real estate and I do sell real estate, but I do see, just based on statistics and numbers alone, this is about as objective as I can get on it. You know, the NAR saying 2025 home prices will go up. I definitely see prices continuing to make an upward trajectory. Now, there is one area, and this is, I guess, the pessimist side of me coming out, is that 2025 will also be the year of renters. And I say this as a realtor in saying that it's kind of common knowledge that rents have been coming down just ever so slowly. And so if you're looking to get into an investment property, right now is a very difficult and challenging time in most markets because your ability to make money on a real estate transaction as a pure investment play, let's look at Airbnbs or even just your traditional long-term investments, are not a great option right now. That's not to say that there's always money to be made on real estate and there's always a long-term play you can sit down. I still think owning your own home rather than renting is a great long-term play, especially as a hedge against inflation as you're getting all your different buckets out. But right now you'd have to make a very smart and wise move if you're trying to get into real estate investment.
With an investment purchase, it has to pencil in. So those investors that are listening, you know that there are opportunities now to buy an investment property. As long as it pencils in, when you have a realtor like Tim Jackson who knows how to negotiate, then you're able to do that. The penciling part of the investment is probably a good thing because there have been a lot of wannabe investors that have attempted to do so in the real estate market and that have had to learn the hard way. As long as you're working with a professional that's able to help, not just on the real estate side, not just on the mortgage side, but to understand what it takes to actually pencil that number in, that's what's important.
Well, I was just talking to a title rep recently that said they saw short sales. Now, this is obviously just a subjective point of view. They saw a lot more short sales coming across the desk. So as that pain point does increase for the average American, being flexible and able to leap at opportunity, one person's pain is another person's gain is kind of what I was thinking. It's not a very...
pleasure. One person's pain is another person's pleasure because that rhymes with one person's garbage is another person's treasure.
Yeah.
Come on, man. He's the poet.
There we go. But I mean, I'm working with 3 investors in escrow right now, and a lot of those investment opportunities are happening off market. You're getting these deals delivered to you from somebody that's got their feet on the ground. You're not really going to be getting a great deal from the general market from an investment play. I still think there's great concessions from a first-time home buyer when you're comparing it to what you would be paying for rent. But from an investment standpoint, there's definitely that that steal of the week list that you're going to want to sign up for, so that you at least have your thumb on what's happening, and even if you pass on the opportunity when it comes to your doorstep, you have the numbers in front of you and you can crunch them and say, all right, is this a good decision for me?
Housing still has to be one of the wisest investments one can make. And I say that from the flexibility financially that one has when you buy your home. And that sounds weird, but I'm gonna say it again. When you buy your own home, what you're providing yourself without really knowing that you're providing yourself with is financial flexibility. Where else can you tap equity? You can tap money from your home, borrow it from the walls of your house, and use that money to diversify your investment portfolio at the lowest amount possible. That is the cheapest way to borrow money. It is using the equity of your home. Obviously, you want to buy your home not for that reason. You want to buy your home because then you're paying yourself. You are paying your mortgage instead of paying someone else's mortgage. You hear that often. So of course you want to buy your home so that your kids can have their own yard, so that you and your family can feel safe and feel sheltered in what you work for and what you take care of. But the opportunities that lie outside of that, which happened to me personally in my life that I never knew I needed, that's the biggest gain you're going to get from home ownership. The financial flexibility that you truly have is the greatest gift you can get in home ownership.
Well, we're smoking this La Aurora Puro Vintage, 110th anniversary. Great cigar. Rene, thank you for joining us today with our cigar and real estate talk.
Woo!
And stay tuned because we have got more content coming your way. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.